My fiancé gave his 4 kids important roles in our wedding, but excluded my 5-year-old daughter and said, "She's not my kid, she's yours." So I canceled the wedding and left him with no family. I'm 32 years old. I work as a nurse at a city hospital. And I need to tell this story because there are still days when I wake up wondering if I did the right thing or if I overreacted. You know, if things were really as bad as I saw them. But then I think about my daughter Mia, about how she looked at me those last few days, and I know I made the only decision I could make. I guess I should start at the beginning. When I met Christopher like 3 years ago at a birthday party for a mutual friend. He had 4 kids from previous relationships, the 7-year-old twins, a preteen daughter who was like 11 at the time, and a 5-year-old boy, the same age as my Mia. At first I thought it was amazing. I mean, a father so involved, so present in his children's lives, and I was coming from a relationship where Mia's father basically disappeared when she was 2. So seeing someone so committed to fatherhood really attracted me. The first few months were good. I'm not gonna lie. Christopher was attentive, loving, and seemed genuinely interested in getting to know Mia. We'd go to parks on weekends, have meals all together, and although his kids lived with their respective mothers most of the time, when they were with us, we tried to make everything flow well. Mia is a super sweet girl, a little shy at first, but very affectionate once she gets comfortable, and I thought that eventually we'd all form a nice family, like those you see in movies where blended families work out perfectly. We moved in together like a year and a half ago, bought a house in the suburbs, nothing fancy but with enough space for the kids to have their own rooms when they came over. Mia was excited, decorated her room with unicorn stickers, and I thought, this is a new beginning for us. We're finally gonna have a complete family. Christopher proposed about 8 months ago. It was something simple, romantic, in the same park where we met, and I said yes, without thinking twice because honestly, I believed he was the one, that despite how complicated it could be, managing 5 kids between the 2 of us, we were going to be able to make it work. We started planning the wedding for this summer. Nothing too big, like 80 people, at a nice venue near a lake we found. I was super excited about everything. Choosing the dress, the flowers, the menu, all those things I'd always dreamed of, but with my first marriage, never got to have because it was something super quick at the courthouse. One day we were sitting in the living room, like 2 months after getting engaged, and Christopher pulls out his laptop and says, "I need to start organizing the kids' roles in the wedding." I was like, perfect. It's going to be nice to have them all involved. So he starts saying, the twins are going to be flower girls. My older daughter is going to do a reading during the ceremony, and my son is going to be the ring bearer. I was waiting for him to mention Mia, but he didn't say anything else. I thought maybe he forgot or that I assumed it was obvious she'd be included too. So I said kind of casually, and Mia can be a flower girl too with the twins, right? It's going to look super cute, the 3 of them together. Christopher looked at me and said, "No, I already have 3 flower girls. That's enough." Just like that, like it was nothing. I laughed because I thought he was joking, but he had that serious face he gets when he's already decided something and doesn't want to discuss it. I said, "Wait, are you serious? All your kids are going to have a role, but Mia doesn't." And he sighed like I was being dramatic and said, "Laura, 3 flower girls is already a lot. We don't need 4. Besides, she can just be part of the audience and enjoy the wedding as a guest." I didn't want to start a fight right then because, I don't know, I thought maybe if I let him think about it a bit more he'd change his mind. So I just said okay and changed the subject. But that night I couldn't sleep, turning the whole thing over in my head. I mean, all his kids were going to be up there, being part of the most important moment of our lives, and my daughter was going to be sitting in a chair watching them, like a spectator. The more I thought about it, the weirder it seemed, and I started wondering if there were other things I hadn't noticed before. You know, little signs that Christopher treated Mia differently. Like 2 weeks went by and Mia came home from kindergarten one day, super excited because she'd heard the twins talking about being flower girls. She came up to me with those big eyes she has and said, "Mommy, I can be a flower girl at your wedding too, right?" I felt like someone stabbed a knife in my chest because I knew I was going to have to tell her something, but I didn't want to break her heart yet. I said, "Let me talk to Christopher, honey," and she skipped away happy, thinking it was a yes. That night I waited until we were alone and told Christopher, "We need to talk about the flower girl thing." Mia heard the twins and now she wants to participate too. And honestly, Christopher, I think it's fair that she gets to do it. He literally rolled his eyes and said, We already talked about this, Laura. We're not having 4 flower girls. It's gonna look ridiculous. I said. Ridiculous? Seriously? Your 4 kids have roles, but including my daughter would look ridiculous. And he started getting angry and said, don't start turning this into a my kid versus your kid thing. That's super toxic. I was like shocked because he was flipping the situation to make me the bad guy, when literally he was the one excluding a 5-year-old girl. I asked him, why can't she be a flower girl? And he said something about how he'd already visualized the ceremony with 3 girls and that adding one more would unbalance the aesthetic or, I don't know, what absurd thing. The aesthetic. Can you believe it? I said, Christopher, this isn't a photo shoot. It's our wedding. It's supposed to be about uniting our families. And he stood up and said, I'm not going to keep arguing about this. My decision is made. The next few days were super tense. I tried to act normal in front of Mia, but inside I was boiling. I started noticing things I hadn't seen before. Or maybe I'd seen them but had ignored them. Like when Christopher would buy ice cream for his kids but tell Mia she'd already had enough sweets for the day, or when his twins left their toys scattered all over the house and he wouldn't say anything. But if Mia left a doll in the living room, he'd tell her she needed to learn to pick up her things. Small things, you know. But together they started forming a pattern. One night, we were all having dinner together. His kids were visiting that weekend, and the twins wouldn't stop talking about the flower girl dresses they were gonna wear. Mia was sitting there, quiet, moving food around on her plate, and I could see she was sad. I tried to change the subject, but the girls kept going, and Christopher was even showing them pictures on his phone of different dress styles. When we finished dinner, Mia went straight to her room, without saying anything. I followed her, and found her lying on her bed, hugging her stuffed unicorn. I sat with her and asked her what was wrong, though obviously I knew. She looked at me with tears in her eyes and said, why can the twins be flower girls, but I can't? Did I do something bad? I had to leave the room because I didn't want her to see me cry. That same night, I confronted Christopher again. I said, you just broke my daughter's heart at the dinner table. Did you see her face while your daughters talked about the dresses? He told me I was exaggerating, that Mia would get over it, that kids are resilient. I yelled at him. She's 5 years old, Christopher. She doesn't understand why she's being excluded from something so important, and to be honest, I don't understand it either. He started getting really angry and told me I was being petty, that I was creating problems where there weren't any, that if I kept insisting on this, I was going to ruin our relationship. I said, our relationship is already ruined if you can't treat my daughter with the same respect you treat yours. He said something I'll never forget. He said, maybe the problem is that you expect me to treat her exactly the same as my own kids, when she's not my daughter. She's yours. I froze. I mean, we'd been together almost 3 years. We lived together. We were about to get married. And he saw Mia as someone else's daughter, not as part of his family. I asked him, so what is this? What are we doing here? And he said, we're building a life together. But that doesn't mean I have to pretend your daughter is mine. Right? Then something broke inside me. The next few days were horrible. We basically stopped talking except for logistical things like, what time are you picking Mia up from school? Or did you pay the electric bill? I was evaluating the whole relationship, wondering how I'd gotten to, in this point, how I hadn't seen before, that Christopher had never really planned to integrate Mia as one of his kids. I started thinking about the future, about what things would be like after we got married, about all the times Mia was going to feel less than, about all the occasions when she was going to be left aside. And I couldn't do that to my daughter. I couldn't ask her to grow up in an environment where she clearly wasn't valued the same way as the other kids. Like a week after the last big fight, Christopher came home from work and told me we needed to talk. He sat on the couch and said, I've been thinking a lot about this and I need you to understand my position. I already visualized the complete ceremony. I already talked to the twins about their roles. I already ordered the ring bearer suit for my son. Changing everything now would be confusing for them, and frankly, Laura, I feel like you're being inflexible. You're not seeing the big picture. I said. Inflexible? Christopher, I'm literally asking you to include my daughter in our wedding? That's not being inflexible. That's being a mother. He sighed and said, if this is so important to you, maybe Mia can help hand out programs at the entrance or something like that. Hand out programs? My 5-year-old daughter was going to hand out programs while his kids had important roles in the ceremony. I said, are you listening to yourself? Do you really think that's a fair solution? And he stood up and said, "That's my final offer. Take it or leave it." That's when I knew there was no going back. I said, "I think we need to cancel the wedding." He laughed kind of sarcastically and said, "Are you willing to throw away 3 years of a relationship over this? Over a role in a wedding?" And I told him, "No. I'm willing to end this relationship because I realized you never saw my daughter as part of this family, and if she can't be part of our wedding, then she's not going to be able to be part of our life together. I'm going to take Mia, and we're moving out." The next week was absolute chaos. I called my sister and asked if we could stay with her temporarily while I found an apartment. I packed all our stuff. Well, Mia's and mine, and Christopher basically watched me do it without saying anything. I think he didn't think I was actually going to leave. The day we left, Mia asked me why we were leaving, and I told her that Mom and Christopher needed some time apart. She asked if it was because of the flower girl thing, and I didn't know what to tell her, so I just hugged her and told her that sometimes things don't work out the way you expect, but that it wasn't her fault. We settled into my sister's place. She has a 2-bedroom apartment, so Mia and I shared a room. It wasn't ideal, but it was temporary. I started looking for places to rent, something close to my work and Mia's school. The first week was weird. Mia would ask about Christopher and the twins, and I didn't really know what to tell her. I'd explain that we weren't going to live together anymore, but that she hadn't done anything wrong, that sometimes adults make decisions that are hard to understand. Like a week and a half went by when Christopher showed up at my sister's house. He knocked on the door, and when I opened it, he had flowers in his hand and that kind of regretful face. He said, "Laura, let's talk, please. I made a mistake." I let him in because my sister was with Mia at the park, and we had the house to ourselves. He sat down and started saying he'd been reflecting, that he understood he'd been unfair, that he wanted us to come back. For a second, my heart wanted to believe him, because 3 years isn't nothing, and part of me still loved him. But then he said, "I'm willing to let Mia be a flower girl if that's what you need for us to get back together." It sounded good, right? But then he added, "I just need you to promise me you're not going to keep making this a thing. That after this, we're going to put aside this whole my daughter versus your kids issue." And that's when I realized nothing had changed. He wasn't understanding why I'd left. He thought it was just a tantrum about the role in the wedding, when in reality it was because I didn't trust that he was going to treat Mia fairly in the future. I said, "Christopher, this was never just about the wedding. This is about how you see my daughter, about how you treat her compared to your own kids. And if you can't see that, then there's nothing to talk about." He got angry again, started saying I was being dramatic, that all parents treat their biological kids differently than their partner's kids, that it was something natural. I told him, if that was his position, then we definitely couldn't be together, because I needed someone who saw Mia as their daughter too, especially if we were going to get married. He left without saying anything else, left the flowers on the table and left. That was the last real conversation we had. After that, there were some messages, some more attempts on his part to get back together, but I'd already made my decision. I found a nice apartment close to my work, 2 bedrooms, nothing luxurious but enough for us. Mia decorated her new room, and little by little she adapted to our new life. It's been like 4 months since we moved out. Mia doesn't ask about Christopher or the twins anymore. She's happier, honestly, more relaxed. I think even though she didn't express it directly, she also felt the tension in that house, the difference in how they treated her versus how they treated the other kids. I'm okay, I guess. There are days when I wonder if I overreacted, if I should have been more patient or more flexible. But then I think about how Mia felt those last few months, and I know I did the right thing. A mother has to protect her children, even if that means ending a relationship that on paper seemed perfect. Last week, Mia asked me if we're ever going to have another wedding, and I told her I didn't know. Maybe someday. But for now, we're fine, just the 2 of us. She hugged me and said, "That's okay, Mommy. I like it when it's just you and me anyway. And that's enough for now, I guess."